Hi Mona. I'm actually delighted to have you here because I think that it's a fantastic film. And thank you also for coming all the way from Paris it's my pleasure. Okay. So the first question I'd like to ask you is just talk about, your background and how you became a filmmaker and just what led you to making this documentary.
Hi everyone, thank you for watching the documentary. So my name is Mona Hammoud, I'm French Lebanese, and I'm a journalist and a filmmaker. I've been a journalist, reporter for almost 10 years in my life, and there's a major event that changed everything, the war in Gaza. I was actually very disappointed by the media coverage, the Western media coverage about Gaza and Lebanon. To witness such dishonesty, selective compassion, dehumanization of our people, total disregard for journalistic ethics really disappointed me, and I just didn't want to be part of the system anymore. So I stepped away from the news industry, and I wanted to blend journalism and filmmaking, and that's how I was like, okay, I think it's the right time for me to shed the light on stories that matters. And why stand up? It's actually, everyone asks me why stand up, because I used to report or cover political events, so stand up is very different from what I've done. Actually, stand up came to me very spontaneously. I was just going through the Instagram page of Awkward, the first comedy club in Lebanon. And in the background, in my living room, there was a program about Lebanon saying how Lebanon is collapsing, going bankrupt. And I just froze and stopped, and I was like, why is no one talking about this side of Lebanon? These talents, these people, because no one really knows that there is stand-up in Lebanon. So I was like, okay, I'm going to work on this just to try to break the Western narrative about Lebanon or just our culture. And I started to do some research, work a little bit, and I realized that there was absolutely nothing on the Lebanese stand-up. There were just like a few articles here and there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to work on that topic, and that's when, as I told you, I tried to blend journalism and filmmaking on that topic.
Yeah, we were just saying we'll take it in terms of the questions. So throughout this festival, we've seen comedy as a source of joy and reconciliation and gladness and glee and all these lovely feel-good aesthetics, whereas I feel like in your film you explore comedy as like a survival mechanism, right? Something a bit more poignant to that. I like that line from one of the comedians who said that, while we scream, we're making people laugh at the same time, and that really spoke to me. So I wonder if you could talk a bit about like that side of humor as a kind of defense or coping mechanism as well.
Absolutely, all the comedians, it's a process for them to heal through the trauma that they've been through, and they just hold on stage as if it's a way of healing after everything that they've been through. And what they're making is pretty amazing, because in the chaos that they're living in, they're trying to make something. They have their own jobs, but on the side they have stand-up. And as Stephanie Ralgouni said in the documentary, it's a kind of therapy. It's extremely important for them to just go on stage and speak out. And Wissam Kamal used to tell me, Mona, stand-up is yourself. You have to be authentic on stage. Otherwise, people feel it. They feel that you're fake. So you have to give your all when you're on stage. And yes, it's very interesting to see how stand-up and being on stage, writing, is extremely important for them. And that's why I really wanted to shed the light on these comedians, because they're really doing an amazing job in a country where sometimes it's hard to laugh. So my question to them was also, in a country where it's hard to laugh, with all the anxiety, the toxicity that there's around you, how do you make people laugh? Well, they're actually going through trauma, and they've all been through therapies, and they're working on themselves to be better people. and being on stage is part of the process to heal as well.
Maybe you can talk about August the 4th a little bit later, but one of the things that I found very interesting about your film is the cinematography, because a lot of your team were women. So I think that's very important, actually, because there's some beautiful cinematography in it, and the fact that you show normal life in Lebanon, because you're talking about the Western narrative, and there's lots of images of people, walking along, the promenade, people in a market, like the images of the sea. You've got two different things going on there, because one of the things is that Lebanon as a country is actually a very beautiful country. It's got mountains, valleys, you've got pictures of people fishing and diving and just being normal. So that in itself, because you've got the comedians talking about, the difficult times that the country is actually being through and how it's a good therapy for them. Could you talk about how you decided to film with your cinematographer?
Well, first of all, the major obstacle for this project was the money, because I pitched the story to a few media production companies, and they were all like, that's a cute topic, but why don't you just go and film about the war in the South? And I was like, oh, here we go again. I just don't want to keep feeding this Western narrative about Lebanon, so I realized that I would have to do it with my own money, my own savings, and it was really important to me. I didn't want to give up, because I was in a very bad place when the war in Gaza started and in Lebanon, that I needed to do something, to focus about something. So since I had a very small budget, I had to find people who were aligned with me and who would be okay to be on board with me for this. So I had to find it took me quite a long time, but at the end of the day, I found Etsi Hajja, which is an amazing DOP, and Laurence Adli, which is an amazing editor, and they had this, they were very sensitive to their stories, their testimonies, and they had this empathy, and that's what I wanted. I really wanted something where you have this kind of intimacy with these comedians in order to discover them differently, because they're funny people, but okay, if you dig a little bit, who's behind this character? So it was important as well for us to show the daily life in Beirut. It's just another country like you have anywhere. And it was important to just normalize it and watch it and feel like there's a connection, like feel a relationship. So that's what we try to work on, and very importantly, I really wanted to show the amazing and beautiful landscapes we have in Lebanon, this very epic, these epic landscapes. The Lebanon I know, I really wanted to talk about Lebanon the way I know it, and through their lens, their perspective, their eyes, far from the Western narrative again. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in denial. I know there are a lot of things to do in Lebanon, a lot of problems, but Lebanon should not be reduced to just one thing, war. Lebanon is a beautiful country. It's very rich, diverse. People love culture, love arts, love poetry, literature. It's a very intellectual country. People love it, and they love life. So if, and on a very small scale, I was able just to show another face of Lebanon, well, that was the goal and the challenge in the movie.
We did that, yeah.
I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the comedian's role in society. There's one line from one of the stand-ups in your film who says that, this is a kind of magical space because there's 18 religious communities in this one room, all bouncing ideas off each other and laughing at the same material. So did you find it a kind of unifying experience, the glue that kind of held the culture together? I kept thinking about Peter Cook, the famous British comedian, used to say that, like, when he was asked about the power of comedy to kind of make a difference in the world, he used to always talk about how, oh yes, all of those burlesque clubs in 1939 in Germany, did so much to stop the rise of fascism. So he was always quite sort of sceptical about the power of it. But I wondered if you think that it sort of had a more positive role to play.
Actually, yes, because as Stephanie Ralbouni said, you have like 18 communities in Lebanon, maybe even more. And in this one room, everyone is different. We all come from a very different background, environment, and sometimes some people are shocked, but it creates a conversation, it creates a debate, it creates a round table. And you have people coming from like all ages, as she says, and it's a kind of melting pot, and it's the image of Lebanon. It's really like there's so much diversity, so people are different and the same at the same time. You can go up in the mountains, there's a different culture. Down in Beirut, there's a different kind of like way of thinking. So when you mix it all, it's a cocktail. So that's how Lebanon is, and when you watch them on stage, every single comedian has a certain humor. Like, for example, Wissam is very into black humor. Mohammed Baalbaki is very, like a sniper. Shakir is like very intellectual comedian. You don't see the joke coming and then boom, it comes at the end. So yeah, each one of them has their own sensitivity and ideas. So that's what I found pretty interesting.
As I said, I think we should talk about all this stuff a little bit later, but what I wanted to talk to you about was, what was interesting was how the humour travelled, okay? Because when Issam was talking about Beirut Airlines, I thought about, there's a guy called Carl Mullen who's on Instagram, and one of the things that he does is about the difference between Aer Lingus and Ryanair. So he's got Aer Lingus like very polite, right? Good morning, welcome, all this stuff, and he's got Ryanair. How are you? You're all right. Well, we got here, didn't we? And that's what I thought of immediately. And I think, when they were talking about ordinary, everyday experience, what that comes across, and even things that we wouldn't even know about, like the Fairuz song.
Yeah. Well, actually, comedy is kind of tied to the culture. There are some jokes that you guys can understand, and some you'll be like, okay, well, I didn't get it, but it sounds funny, so you just laugh. But yeah, it's funny how humor, comedy is really an image of a society. It just gives you an idea of like the humor. So yeah, this joke was a very funny joke. Even Fairuz's one, because like Fairuz's song it's such a famous song. And when I heard when I heard his joke, I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. And I just never realized, whereas I just listened to this song for like almost like 20 years. So yeah, as I say, it's always nice to create like a debate or like open up ideas. So yeah, I mean, and now the stage in Lebanon, it's going viral, like it's exploding, it's working really well. Rooms are like packed. And people enjoy it because there's so many topics that people just do not bring on TV because it's very smooth, whereas on stage they're unfiltered, literally. 20 years ago there was a lot of comedy, but there was always a message behind, but it was still filtered. Today, like, they speak about like everything: homosexuality, feminism, love, sexuality, like honestly, yeah, all the topics are brought on stage, and some people can feel offended, and some just really enjoy it. So it creates a debate. That's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, just to return a little bit to the notion of the cinematography in the film. Obviously, you created a documentary, but within the documentary there are clips from stand-up comedians, and anybody who's watched a stand-up show live and then seen it, a recording of it, audiovisual recording of it, knows that some of the nuances of being in that live space are different to how they would be when it's on the screen. So I wondered kind of just technically, like, where did you put the camera? How did you film those? How did you navigate the tension between kind of telling a documentary story about these people and also showing us moments as an audience that were entertaining, that would potentially make us laugh, like as though we were in the room with those stand-ups?
Oh, you mean about the bits that were in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
the
yeah.
bits of
So
the
I asked Awkward to send them to me, but I tried to choose like jokes that were kind of universal, let's say, because like some of the jokes are like super local. You guys like wouldn't understand, so. I mean, honestly, when I work with people on a set or for a news story, or even for a documentary, I just try that at the end of the day, they just do not see me anymore. Like, I just become part of it. So I just do not go with the camera right in front of the face. And for example, with Wissam, the interview was like 2 hours. And he was like, oh, are we done? I'm like, yes. He was like, yeah, but you didn't tell me we started. I was like, Wissam, it's supposed to be a conversation. And it has to be natural. So I had to spend a lot of time with them so we can create a connection and be comfortable with each other so that they trust me and I trust them. It's a whole process. And when I filmed in the comedy club, I was just, we were just right behind filming like people's reaction, people laughing, them going on stage. So yeah, we spent like a few weeks with them. And at the end of the day, for example, when we're backstage with them, they sometimes just don't see the camera. Like, we're just like, not hiding, but like, they do not feel our presence and they act very naturally when they think, or when Wissam, because Wissam is very talkative, when Wissam tells me, I'm super stressed now, he just comes to me very spontaneously. So, yeah, I mean, you have to build a connection with the people you're interviewing.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that you did spend time with them and did build up a relationship with them. And obviously in any documentary, you're going to be doing, you know, a lot more footage than what you actually show and, you know, you have to sift through. But I thought what was interesting was that 3/4 of the way through, suddenly you start talking about what happened on 4th of August 2020, which was absolutely devastating. And I found it extremely touching because I remember the day it was on the news, and there's this sort of lone building in the docks which is standing there, and everywhere else has been flattened, and you know, it's just, you know, over 200 people killed and thousands, you know, over 6,000 people injured, and you know, all these people who have been left homeless or their flats, you know, everything's been smashed up and everything. Yeah. And I just found it so interesting to see how they responded, because when Wissam actually said that he went out and bought, you know, bandages and serums, and it was such a practical thing to do that I found it incredibly touching.
Yes, I mean, he says it clearly. He said he felt it was a duty. And I think, yes, I mean, it just shows how resilient they are. But again, I think Lebanese haven't chose to be resilient. I mean, they just do not have the choice. Like, they have to be. Otherwise, it's just like Wissam says, okay, we stay home depressed, and then what? We have to speak up, we have to be creative, we have to build some stuff. So, yeah, it was like, for the explosion of the port was extremely traumatic for every Lebanese, even abroad. I was abroad, and you have this guilt trip. Like, I was about to go to Lebanon, and I was like, okay, then why I wasn't there, why I'm here safe. And like all the comedians, even not in the film, we were speaking about what happened, and they all tell me that there is a before and after. Like, there are scars, like they have to go through therapies, and it's been a very traumatic event, because it's not like a war. A war, you know that there's an enemy, and you know that, okay, there's gonna be bombs, strikes. For the Voice, there was nothing. People were just, it happened at 6 p.m. People were just going back home, and boom, you know, like the danger comes into your place. That's what Stephanie says. You're not ready for that. So, yes, it was a very traumatic event for everyone, absolutely, yeah.
I'll just ask a quick question, because I'm conscious we want to ask, let people from the audience ask their own questions as well. But I just wanted to ask about the angle regarding sex and gender, because I think that the film begins, if I'm right, with Stephanie Galbini saying that, you know, it's hard enough to make comedy in this part of the world, let alone being a woman. And I wondered what your thoughts were as a, you know, a woman filmmaker and for the future of stand-up comedy in that part of the world, especially for women, and maybe the extra challenges that they have to face.
Well, I think the challenges Stephanie is talking about, I think every woman in the world is going through these challenges. I mean, she is talking about it from her perspective, but I guess every woman, even in Europe, like when you want to go back home at night, you don't feel safe. And being a woman is tough wherever you are, either in Lebanon and Afghanistan and France and Dublin. I guess there's a lot to be done for women, and I think in this field it's even harder because, as she said, like there's this cliche that, you know, men are funnier, and when she said it, I was like, yes, it's true that there are more men than women. So I hope women are gonna, you know, come up on stage even more, and Stephanie is doing a great job. And in Lebanon, honestly, there are many women now. There are a lot of women coming on stage, more men, but I mean, they're working on it. And I felt that the fact that there are more men than women is not only related to Lebanon. Even in France, I go a lot to like open mics and I watch stand-up comedy shows. And let's say that on 10 comedians, there are maybe like 2 or 3 women, and all the rest are men. So I think there's a lot of work to be done everywhere for women, not only in Lebanon, I guess so.
Yeah, the Comedy Film Festival, part of the Comedy Film Festival is that we've had these heats for stand-up, and it's the final tonight, isn't it?
That's right, at 8 p.m.
But I mean, I don't know what the ratio would be from male to female, but we definitely have quite a few, you know, women, you know, stand-ups.
That's good to know.
But they would still be not as many as the men. You know? Yeah. I just wanted to say something quickly, because then we just open up to asking people questions. Because the thing about the emigration, I think it's something a lot of Irish people can understand. I mean, my parents were immigrants to England, and you know, I have cousins who are in Australia, in the US. You know, so I would say that the Irish in general, there's a culture of emigration for centuries, literally. So we can really understand that thing about not wanting to leave your country.
Absolutely,
You know?
and I think that's why, and it's my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, that's why I feel like Lebanese, Palestinians, and Irish people share a very common feeling of struggle, resilience, the constant battle of wanting to preserve your heritage, culture, identity, and the struggles of just staying in your country. And yes, absolutely, I feel these 3 countries, these 3 people, Palestinians, Lebanese, and Irish people, are related in a way, because a lot of Lebanese, I mean, if I had the choice, I would never leave Lebanon. And I was just speaking about that with my cousin just a while ago. If, like, no one leaves their country just by pleasure. Yeah. You leave because you have to leave because of political issues, economical issues. So yes, absolutely. I think there's a common thing between these 2.
And I think, when I think about my parents, you know, because my parents were economic, you know, immigrants to England, and I'm going home had 2 meanings. I'm going home meant I'm going home to where we live, and then the other thing it meant I'm going to Ireland, you know. So home was always Ireland, but also not the town where we live, but the actual place.
Absolutely,
place where we live. So that's, you know, so that's interesting. So it never leaves them, and they actually came back. So my parents came back after, you know, like 30 years of living in England. Okay, I think we should open it out to the audience.
I wondered what kind of reputation Lebanese have within the Arab-speaking world in terms of who's funnier. You know, so are Lebanese considered, in the way we might talk about a British sense of humour or an Irish sense of humour, you know, are the Lebanese considered funnier than, I don't know, the Gulf Arabs or maybe
I just couldn't hear you. Can you speak louder, please?
Is that better? Yes. Wondering what kind of reputation Lebanese have within the Arab-speaking world in terms of their sense of humour. Are they funnier than Gulf Arabs or, I don't know, Moroccans or
Well, actually, I think we have a very great reputation because in the documentary as well, Shakir says we're a people, we constantly joke because it's a coping mechanism. So honestly, Lebanese, even nowadays, I mean, there's war in Lebanon, and they always try to find a way to laugh right after. I think it's part of us, this kind of resilience that we have to, you know, share. But the Syrians are funny as well. They do a lot of comedy. Syrians are very good as well. But Egyptians as well. Yeah, Egyptians are extremely funny. They have a lot of comedy shows, but maybe Lebanese better. No, but Syrians are good. Egyptians as well. And our humor is kind of similar, but said in a different way. And the way it is said is funny because the accent is different, the punctuation even, the tones are different. So we all understand each other, but it's funny how it's really tied to the culture, and our cultures are different and similar in a way. So yeah, I mean, if you joke with an Egyptian, a Syrian, and a Lebanese, you're gonna have fun. You're gonna have fun because it's gonna be super funny, you know. So, yeah.
Cool. Any further questions? Oh, can I just ask how long have we got? No?
You take as long as you need, you know.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience?
Jon Stewart in the USA and Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine have they started off as comedians and then moved into they've had, obviously, Vladimir has had become president, and Jon Stewart has had impact in passing laws and getting protections for people who need it in the USA. One of the people featured in the documentary was John, who I forget his surname.
John Ashar.
Yeah, and he has looks like he has a talk show, and so is he, and a lot of the comedians talk about there's an oppressive, the government seem oppressive on expression like that, and is there a possibility that the comedians might move into politics in the future? That's all.
Absolutely, John has a show. It's a talk show, as you said, kind of like following a little bit Jon Stewart. But honestly, I don't think any of them would engage in politics because they're extremely. They do criticize a lot of politics. It could be, for example, John in his show or even on stage. All the comedians are very. They criticize a lot politics. So I don't think they're going into that path. But the freedom of speech and the freedom that they have on stage is so important and vital for them that I honestly I don't think they would one day go into politics, just like Zelensky or other comedians who went into politics. I hope not, honestly, because they're too funny to go into politics. But I think the space that they have is extremely important for them to say out loud what they think and what the people think as well. So, yeah.
Any further questions? There's one there.
From what I recall, two of the comedians mentioned about being able to joke about a lot of things in society, but not clerics. I'm wondering, is that still the case? And how far off is it before maybe that bridge can be bridged?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So that they can talk about everything but not clerics, is that what you said? Yeah, clerics as in not
oh,
religious.
you mean religion? Oh, if it's tough for them to speak about religion?
It seems, I think that's what they said, that actually you can touch on a lot of issues and a lot of topics, but clerics is kind of a no-go area. Is that still the case?
I wouldn't say that it's a no-go area. Let's say that it's a topic that can offend people in the audience, for example. But if you speak about, I don't know, a religious figure, you're not going to jail. Nothing is going to happen to you. And that's where Lebanon is very different from other countries. Stand-up wouldn't be able to exist in some countries because like they're really unfiltered. Like they curse, they speak about everyone, they criticize everyone just like in any other country. And Muhammad al-Baki talks about the fact that it's a touchy topic, of course, because Lebanon is like based on religion. It's a multi-religious political system, meaning that the president has to be Christian, the president of parliament has to be Shia, so it's, and the prime minister has to be Sunni, so it's in the system, it's within the system. And some people are very open-minded, and some, let's say from the older generation, are still sticking to these kind of clerics. People between them, I mean, our generation is very open about that topic. You wouldn't find that openness in other countries, that's for sure. But they're doing a great job criticizing, speaking, respecting at the same time, so they understand that some topics are touchy, so they don't want to offend people, but when they talk about something, they want to be free to give their opinions about a certain topic. So it's half-half, and I think they're doing it in a very respectful way, because they know that there's a difference between doing comedy, satire, and being disrespectful. And that's a whole debate. Even now in Europe, there's a debate about how far can we go when we speak about religion. And they have the exact same debate right now in Arab countries, even in Lebanon. So I think they're trying to find a balance concerning that topic.
There's one other question if I could ask, and that I'm not sure if I got it right. Are you living in Lebanon at the minute?
I used to live in Lebanon. I had to leave Lebanon, and now I live in France.
In France. And I suppose that was my question. I visit many homes of people from different cultures, and I go into their living room, and their television is on, and their television is on the news channel of their home country. And I think it's like they're so connected and feeling such huge loss by not being able to be there. And I just wonder in some ways for your life in France, is that constant, you're pricked, you're constantly listening. Are you listening for the word Lebanon all the time on the news channels, on the TV or whatever?
It's absolutely, it's very toxic, but at the same way, as a journalist first, I'm always listening to the news, doing the analysis, etc. And at the same time, my family's there, my friends are there, I grew up there, I went to university there, I've had the most beautiful years of my life there, and if I had the choice, I would never leave Lebanon, but unfortunately I had to leave, and especially now, with the war, you again have this guilt trip. I wanted to go there, but I have a baby now, I have a family, I have to find a balance. So I think every Lebanese living abroad is going through the same anxiety and the fact that life is just going on, whereas I am still stuck, like I have my feet there, but my heart is over there. So it's very hard to find a balance. And that's why it was extremely important for me to work on such topic, because I was just fed up with the media coverage and the Western narrative about Lebanon, Palestine, Arab people, that I felt the need to speak about Lebanon in a different perspective. And I think it was also a way for me to heal a little bit, to feel useful, and to do my job, and to just give it a little bit more justice as a Lebanese. So yes, I think it was just like comedians are holding on to stage. I was holding on to this project, even though I didn't have the money. I had, it was challenging, but at the end of the day, here I am with you guys. So yeah, I think my heart is stuck there, but I have to be anywhere, like in another place for now, let's say. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right, well, thank you, Mona Hammoud. Thank you for a fantastic film and also fantastic interview.
Thank you, thanks to you. And if you guys felt inspired by their stories, feel free to send them an Instagram message. The comedians, unfortunately, they couldn't be here, and I'm sure they would have loved. Here it is. They're stuck there. So yes, thank you very much for each person who came and watched the movie. Thank you.
Excuse me, can you take us a picture? Yeah. Take us a picture, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you're looking great. Gorgeous.
Thanks.
Very photogenic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.